Welcome to
The Dark Files. I'm Emily Sweaters.
And I'm Kasie Cardigan. And this week we are jumping into the world of changelings.
Ooh.
I'm very excited. But I do want to address something. So I did have Abby and my sister and my mom listen to it.
Yeah.
And she's like, Kasie, you can't call yourself Kasie Cardigan and not expect me to make fun of you. So I want to give a disclaimer on why we're going by Emily Sweaters and Kasie Cardigan. And that is because when we were deciding to do the podcast, I was kind of like, I don't really want my last name out there, even though people can probably find out what it is. It's just like some sort of privacy. Mm-hmm. So then Emily had guest starred on a podcast before and was like, I went by Emily Sweaters. And so then we just joked that I'm Kasie Cardigan. But yeah, Abby's like, you can't just say that and not expect me to explain it.
So those are not our real last names, real first names.
Yeah, real first
real
names.
Last names.
Not real last names.
You know, we want to have some privacy if this were to ever become popular.
Or even if it's like just random people listening, like, I don't know.
Right, I get
But
that.
I feel like that with work, though, they've always kind of, like, my last name isn't on my Facebook page and things like that, just to keep privacy.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so we know it's dorky, but
so we're
we.
dorky.
So there we go.
Get over it.
Okay, Emily, are you ready for the changeling?
Yes. I know nothing about changelings.
You don't know anything?
No.
Okay, good.
I know the Angelina Jolie movie.
What Angelina Jolie movie?
It's called Changeling.
There's a movie called Changeling?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, I think I did look that up, and it has nothing to do with changelings.
Changelings.
Yes.
Okay.
I think...
Yeah, like, I think her son was murdered, and, like, she is, like, trying to, like, find the killer.
Okay, yes. Okay, now, yes.
Yeah.
I say that because I'm looking at it right now, because when I started Googling changeling, that is what popped up.
Yeah.
So... Do you want to take a break to eat? I paused, so we have no time to edit.
No.
You can grab something.
They're just crumbs.
Oh, okay.
I was just picking.
Okay. That's what I'm breaking. I'm like, Okay, so I'm going to go. Okay. So when I was Googling it, it popped up a lot, and I'm like, wait, is that something about... No, it had nothing to do with it.
Okay.
So, and this might get a little confusing, but... And I hope I do it justice. I don't know. Okay.
Well, let's find out.
So I'm kind of going to break it down into like what they are.
Okay.
What they are / origins.
Okay.
And then I have a crazy bizarre story for you about a changeling that keeps popping up when you Google changelings.
Okay.
So it's going to be kind of a long tale today, I guess.
Let's do it. I got my claw.
You got your White Claw, not sponsored, but it should be.
Yeah, White Claw, please sponsor us.
Please sponsor us. Oh my God. If White Claw sponsored us, we'd have so much White Claw. We would have so much White Claw. We would have so much White Claw. That's the answer. We would have so much White Claw. Okay, so first I'm going to start off with my sources. So the bulk of them are from this essay called Changelings, an Essay by D.L. Ashleman.
Okay.
And then also Wikipedia, because why not? Wiki. Then otherworldlyoracle.com. Mm-hmm. I didn't get a ton from there, but I put a little bit. And then the story that I'll say and a lot of the history is from the Irish History Podcast.
Yes, do the beautiful voice.
I know. I made you listen to the voice, and I just really liked listening to him. I went to walk to go get Fesslers the other day.
Yeah.
And I just listened to him, and I'm like, it's so peaceful. Okay. So, do you know anything, like, what a changeling is at all?
I know nothing.
At all?
No.
Really? Nothing at all?
Really.
Okay. So, the first time I heard of changelings, it was when Kelly and I were at the National Leprechaun Museum in Dublin, Ireland. And it sounds really cheesy, and they, like, emphasized the cheesiness, but in a classy way, I think. It was really entertaining. It was very interesting. So you go through this whole thing where they have like, you know, like you just go through this museum and then you sit down by this like campfire. But that's in air quotes, listeners. It's not a real campfire. And then this girl with this Irish voice tells you the story about the changelings.
Okay.
So, yeah. So in a lot of the research, I kind of thought changelings were just like an Irish thing.
Yeah.
But then I found out that they were actually kind of all over. Every country kind of has some sort of it, but I'm mainly focusing on like Ireland because, you know, I love Ireland.
Yes.
And the UK, and then there's some parts of like Europe, but it's the bulk of it's just like Ireland.
Okay, cool.
But it is everywhere. So, and then I also, one of the articles made a point to distinguish the difference between a legend versus a fairy tale. Okay? So changelings are considered legends.
Okay.
Because it's more based in history.
Okay. So there's some factual facts.
Some sort of, yes, factual facts. So it's more of like a legend because it's kind of like, oh, this might have actually happened.
Okay.
Versus a fairy tale, which are usually at an indistinct time or something where it's like once upon a time and it's children's things and it's not as realistic.
Oh, I didn't know
Whereas
that.
a legend is more of like a historical.
So like the Mothman, that's a legend.
Yes.
Because we can pinpoint like a time.
Yes.
Okay.
So I think, and because they're saying that it might have actually happened.
The fairy tales are just like
once upon a time and
Sleeping
wherever.
Beauty, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Isn't that kind of interesting?
That is very interesting.
I know. I thought that was kind of cool. So they're considered legends.
Okay.
Okay. So in order to understand the changelings, you kind of really have to get into the mindset that fairies and mythology is a huge part of the culture.
Yeah.
Right. So, and that's what they talked a lot about at the Leprechaun Museum, which if anyone's in Dublin, I highly recommend it. Kelly and I had a lot of fun. They had beds that were made for giants so you could feel like a little leprechaun.
Aww.
And then there's like, you could wear an orange beard and stand. That was actually on it's one of my Tinder profile pictures.
How many matches did you get with that, Kate?
Yeah, real sexy. But anyway, Julie refused to go. She's like, I'm just going to go to a bar or something. And she didn't go. So anyway, the fairies mythology was huge.
Okay.
Anyway.
Yeah.
It's very big. There's a lot of stock in fairies and superstitions and mythological beings. So fairies were known as the good people beneath the land or beneath the earth. So they referred to fairies as the good people because they would be afraid that if they called a fairy something bad, that the fairies would take revenge on them.
I see.
By maybe messing up their crops.
Okay.
Or so a lot of things that are like natural events could be blamed on the fairies.
Gotcha.
And so, and I remember in the tour, she was saying how there's these hills and mounds all over Ireland, which there are.
Yeah.
And that they were considered fairy hills and mounds.
Yeah.
And that a lot of them are still considered sacred. Like you can't mess, even today, you can't mess with the fairy mound. Because you don't want the wrath of the fairies.
Yeah. There was some movie when we were little about fairies.
Like Thumbelina or
No,
something?
not Thumbelina. It was like a live action movie.
Wait, I'm just thinking of Julia Roberts' Tinkerbell.
No, I have the book. Hold on, I'm looking it up. Because I think it was set in Ireland.
What?
Don't quote me on this. I'm often wrong. Just like last week when I said that the Otherkin subreddit had 4 million followers, it was 4,000.
Oh yeah, that's a correction, I guess.
Yeah, so
they do not have 4 million followers on the
I think
Reddit
it was set
from
in,
last week.
Yeah, it was Fairy Tale, a true story. It came out in 1997. Let me show you the
What?
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I was obsessed with it. Yeah, it was set in 1917 and it was about fairies.
Okay, well, so you kind of get the idea of the fairies.
So they took a picture. These kids claim to have a picture of the first photographic evidence of fairies.
Really?
Yeah.
That's what the movie is?
It might be a true story.
Or a legend.
Or a true legend.
A legend.
Yeah, anyway. Anywho, I digress.
Okay, well, no, now I'm going to go find that movie. I've always liked the idea of fairies and elves and I don't know, I just think it's kind of fun. And it's a good segue in from our otherkin from last week. But, so that's kind of the background of the environment of Ireland.
Yes.
Of a lot of cultures because, we've learned that a lot through history, things that now we can logically explain, were explained through supernatural things.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's kind of the background of fairies and things because a changeling is essentially a baby or a child, like a human baby or child, that has been stolen by a fairy and replaced with a fairy baby. Okay. I know. I was waiting. Just keep waiting, Emily. Okay. You're not even... Okay. So, you have a baby.
Yeah.
And allegedly a fairy steals your human baby and replaces it with a fairy baby.
Okay.
They can tell that it's a fairy baby because maybe it's weaker. It has, like, developmental delays. It's slower. It's not growing as fast. Things like that.
Okay.
Which is just... I know. Okay.
So, I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, go ahead. Interrupt me all you want.
I have a logistical question.
Okay.
How tall are these fairies?
I don't know.
Okay.
Because I don't think they're very big.
So, how could they steal... like, multiple of them, like ants, carry the baby away like a piece of food?
I don't know the logistics. I don't think they're as tiny as ants. I don't know. Actually, that's a great question.
I know that...
I know.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Because they actually, in all of the things that I've read, they don't explain how the baby is stolen.
Okay.
This is a great flaw to point out for the logic that happens later on in the rest of the stuff. Okay. So there are a few reasons why a fairy would take a baby. And I'm just so excited for you to hear my favorite one. One, for the human to be a servant.
Oh my God.
Yes. Two, they maybe want the love. They want the love of a human, or they admire human traits. They think humans are beautiful, so they want to take the human baby.
Okay.
Revenge is number 3.
Okay.
Okay, number 4, and this one is my favorite. If an old fairy is close to dying, sometimes they swap out the old fairy with the human baby. Like, they swap the old fairy. They take the human baby, swap it with the old fairy, so the old fairy can live the rest of their life in comfort. Those are the 4. That's my favorite one. It's just like, well, it's almost like a retirement home for the old fairies.
But so do they still live a full human life even if they're an old fairy? Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
because I think if you're thinking about a fairy, they live very long lives.
Yeah. Like Albus Dumbledore was not a fairy, but he was like 200 years
Yeah, I mean, he was like 1,000,000 years old. So I think fairies just like live long lives, and then if they're old or weak, they're like, let's go send Beatrice up with the humans and let her live it out in peace.
So it's either slavery,
yes,
envy,
revenge, envy of the humans,
like revenge or like not wanting to die or be in an old fairy body.
Yes.
Okay.
So that is essentially what a changeling is. Okay. I know it's very strange.
How do you know if somebody's a changeling?
Okay. Well, just hold tight, Emily.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm just...
No, interrupt as much as you want. I interrupt all the time. Okay. Well, it's just kind of hard to explain, and I don't know if I've fully grasped everything that encompasses the changelings.
For sure.
But whatever.
For sure.
Okay. So if we go back to the beginning, like Hilary Duff says, fairies were used to explain a lot of things that were just like unexplainable at the time.
Yeah.
Sickness, disabilities, things that we now have an answer for with science. So a changeling is kind of like an excuse, I guess. So like if something were to go wrong, you could blame it on a changeling.
It's like a scapegoat.
Yeah, it's a scapegoat, essentially. Okay. Also, in medieval times, and I'm sure before that, people were not always able to feed and provide for themselves and their children, right?
Yeah.
So children that were maybe malnourished, disabled, not growing as fast, those would be the people, like...
That's a changeling.
That's a changeling, exactly. So they would think, like, let's say they had their baby, life was good, and then they notice at 3 years old, maybe they're not talking as much. And or they're doing things like flapping, or like things that we now can recognize as maybe signs of autism, or another type of like different disabilities or things like that. Sure. They couldn't explain it, so they would say, "Oh, the fairy took my baby because your child was once fine and now is acting different." So they would say, "The changeling took my baby." Mm-hmm.
A dingo took my baby.
What? Have you ever seen that video? No. What? Did you say a gringo?
A dingo.
What?
Oh, we should do a dark file on this. There was this woman who, like, it was, like, back in, like, the 90s or the 80s, and this woman, like, claimed that this dingo, like, took her baby and, like, mauled it.
Okay, sorry. Is a dingo like a kangaroo?
No, a dingo's like a wild dog.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So, anyhow, and she was, like, Australian, and she was...
Okay, well, picture that, but an Irish accent and a fairy. So, the changelings were used to kind of describe, like, maybe if you didn't have enough food for your baby and you couldn't feed your child.
And they started to get malnourished.
And they started things like that, and then they'd be like, well, my baby's doing whatever. Mm-hmm. So, now, that's kind of the background-ish. And I know there's other things probably to it.
Yeah, for sure.
So... There's at least like two major approaches that people would take with changelings. Mm-hmm. Okay. So let's say you have your baby, you notice that it's different, and you're like, that's fucking changeling.
Yeah.
My baby's a changeling. Okay. So some people would continue to treat the baby as normal, as their normal child, because they were afraid the fairies would never give their human baby back. So they still treated the kid as their own, even though, because really it was, but like they still treated it as their own because they were afraid the fairies, if the fairies found out the humans were treating a changeling poorly, that they would not give their human baby back.
Right.
Okay. So, the other side of this,
which is do?
Awful, is they used changelings basically to justify abuse and infanticide.
Oh, no.
I know. It made me really sad reading it. So, since a lot of these children were more developmentally or physically weaker and they took more resources, they would be labeled as the changelings, as I said. So, in some cases, parents would take fairly drastic measures to get rid of the child. So, they might... like beat them, burn them, or like in a way, and we'll get into this a little bit later, as a way to get the changeling to come out so that they would swap. So how this swapping was going to work, I don't know.
Like an exorcism kind of.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
I know. It's very terrible. Like then there was one that, I don't remember if this was a legend. I think it was considered a legend that they left the baby up on a hill, like by a fairy hill overnight, in hopes that the fairies would trade out the babies. Yeah. And the next day they would have their human baby. But what that actually led to was a baby dying of exposure.
Yeah, that's so sad.
I know.
What time period are we talking here? Like, when did this stop happening?
Like, so this was all probably like medieval, up like 1500, really 1200s, 13, 14. I think I would say like really 1300s onward, and it kind of stops around the 1800s. Okay. So, and one of the case that I'm going to tell you about later happened as late as 1895. I know. So, and the interesting thing about the changelings is that there's this like sense of shared responsibility. Mm-hmm. So if you have a child, like let's pretend Kasie, I have a child that I think is a changeling. In almost every single one of the legends, the parents seek the advisement of a priest, a neighbor, a fairy doctor, anything like that. Mm-hmm. Let me go back. Fairy doctors are just kind of healers that work with herbs and called whatever.
Sure.
So they seek advice in that like justification that's okay. They seek and hear from somebody what to do. Yeah. So before they make a decision. And this isn't just the Irish. Mm-hmm. So this is quoted, a lot of this is quoted from the Changelings and Essay. story.
Okay.
Okay, so as late as 1924, it was reported that in sections of rural, I can't ever say that word, rural Germany, many people were still taking traditional precautions against the demonic exchange of infants.
In what time?
1924
Jeez Louise.
in rural. You just want to do that, so I say rural.
No, I really wasn't. I didn't hear the first part.
Germany. Okay. And then somebody also wrote, like, just so we get an idea, this was also in Egypt, that there was a belief that the jinn, like a genie, may steal a human infant and put their own infant in its place. That was, like, widespread throughout Egypt.
Gotcha.
So just kind of an idea of this is
like a pervasive,
yes,
like all over the place.
Even the good old Martin Luther of the Protestant Reformation, he was really believed that Satan would take over children and babies, and he like spread that word, which made it very easy to justify almost basically any type of abuse of a child or infant,
right,
when you think it's like a demon.
Yeah. I mean, like, I know that happened in Catholicism too, like
burning babies and stuff.
Not burning babies, but like if somebody was mentally ill, it was often assumed it was a demon.
Which is so
and
baffling.
Exorcised, like they tried to do exorcisms on them, and a lot of people died during exorcisms.
Yes. So just hold on to that thought. Okay.
That damn Catholic schooling.
I know. God. Okay. So I'm trying to go through my notes. I should have okay. So there's two stories I'm going to tell you. So mind you, like this was a couple centuries, probably multiple centuries. I don't know the exact timeline.
Okay.
Of people thinking fairies are taking their babies.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Do you think Eleven's a changeling?
No, I don't think 11's a changeling.
She's got a disability.
Oh, like if back in the day,
Yeah.
she probably would have. I don't know if they considered animals changelings though.
Yeah.
But I think, because you consider her your child, so
Yep,
yes.
I do.
So just treat her well so the fairies don't take the other baby.
I will.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Sorry. So that also reminds me that with these legends and these stories, they would talk a lot about how if you treat your baby well, when you treat your baby well, or when you do these things to babies or children, when you, like, try to basically exercise them, that they say that the human babies just someday return. They just return.
And how do you know when they're back?
That's the point. Nobody knows. No, that's a great question. They're like, but then one of the articles was like, but there's no evidence, like nobody ever really tells when they come back.
So in some ways, I'm sure many families like believe that whatever they were doing worked.
Yes. Yeah. They think that maybe one day a fairy brought their human baby back, which is interesting to me because maybe it's just their mind tricking them, because like unless if you have some sort of a disability or something, like unless you're getting treatment, I can't just see you magically,
unless it was something like a speech delay or something that eventually corrects itself.
Or maybe if they're not getting fed enough, and then they start to get fed or things like that. But so it did say it's like there's not really. People would hear tale of their babies returning to normal, but never really like had any proof.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's two stories I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
Both of them in Ireland.
Okay.
Good old my Irish place. So one girl, Mary Ann Kelly, is from Tipperary.
Tipperary.
No, I don't know how to say it. The guy on the podcast says it's so cool. He's like, I can't do it. I can't do an Irish accent. Anyway, so she is from a very well-off family. She was partially paralyzed and ill. So, you know what that means, Emily?
She's a changeling.
So, they decided that they were going to purge the changeling from her body. Oh, and to give you context, this is 1800s.
Okay.
We're going to purge the changeling.
Yeah,
get it out of there.
Get this bitch out.
Get the bitch out. Get that bitch out. With a toxin made from foxglove.
I don't know that.
which, very fun, causes chronic vomiting and diarrhea.
What is foxglove?
I think it's like some herb.
Oh.
Okay. So that's what it is.
Okay, so
right.
you're going to give her the foxglove.
So somebody, I don't remember who, because this wasn't the main part of the story. This was the one that the podcast told to get you kind of thinking like,
Yeah.
whatever.
Sure.
So they're like, okay, here's the instructions. Give this to Marianne and leave Marianne naked on a dung hill after the tonic is administered.
Is dunghill like poop?
I think so. Or maybe I just couldn't hear him because of his Irish, because of his accent. They're leaving him on a hill. Leaving her on a hill. Dunghill is just what it sounded like with the accent. Okay.
Okay.
So she was killed.
Yeah, how old was she?
I want to say in her 20s.
Oh my god.
I know. So,
So I just googled dunghill, and it says a heap of dung or refuse, especially in a farmyard.
so dunghill's
So,
a
yeah,
thing.
that probably
Okay.
is correct.
Thanks for the Google.
No problem.
The Googs.
The googs.
The Goog Master.
Okay.
Okay. So that is a story
Mm-hmm.
that happened in I think it's County Tipperary. I don't remember if it's county. Anyway,
Okay.
in Tipperary,
Yeah.
where the rest of the story will happen.
Tipperary's got a lot happening.
I know it's got a lot, but so the point the author said was while these things happened, they weren't as common in the 1800s since Ireland had a lot of major changes. So you had bishop, like as science was progressing and things like that, there were some new bishops and things trying to stomp out the old superstitions. So
Like Catholic bishops?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good for them.
Yeah. I mean, I think they still believed in like demons and stuff,
Yeah.
but like I think a lot of the old supernatural fairies and things like that
That
didn't
was kinda-
flow because it was like pagan.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
So, are you ready for this fucking doozy?
I'm ready.
Okay, I gotta look at my notes.
Okay.
Hold on, there's a lot. Okay, so the story begins in March 1895 is when the event happens.
Okay.
So, Bridget Boland Cleary is dead. Okay, she died. So, we're going to backtrack, tell you a little bit about Bridgie. Bridgie Bill grew up in rural Ireland, but she trained as a dressmaker, which was kind of uncommon at the time.
Fun.
So, she trained somewhere else for dressmaking, came back to where she lived. I think it's Boland.
Okay.
Boland or something like that. I couldn't really pronounce it because of the accent. So she came back and she, unlike most women, had fairly decent economic independence. Like she could make her own way because she was a dressmaker. I know. Like this whole time I love fucking Bridget. I'm like, Bridget, get it.
Get it, Bridget.
So Bridget, when she's like 19 or something, 18 or 19, she meets this guy, Michael Clary.
I don't like where this is going.
All right. She met a guy. Nope, we're done. Done. Okay, so she met this guy who had some prospects because he, and I think I got this right, but the accent was really hard to understand it sometimes, made wooden barrels.
Yeah, that sounds
Which at the
reasonable.
time was a good prospect. Like there was a good job. So they both had good jobs.
Yeah.
He was 9 years older, which people kind of thought was weird.
Sure. It's like when Kim and Kanye got married. Both really like millionaires. Great, love it. Combining their assets.
Honestly, as the story goes on, I'm with you on that. They are the Irish 1895 version of Kim and Kanye. Okay, so, and they had what a lot of people considered an unorthodox marriage at the time.
Yeah.
Because he lived in Clymel, and she was about 15 miles away back home in Ballyvaden.
So they live in separate towns?
Yes, she lived with her parents back home. He lived there. And since there weren't like cars and stuff, they couldn't travel to visit each other very often. Things like that.
I guess
but
they didn't have cars back then.
no.
Yeah.
Especially in like rural. God damn it, I have to say that word so many times. Ugh, country Ireland.
Yes.
And Bridget was not financially dependent on her husband.
Right. Yes.
Girl power.
Yes.
So like it was kind of a weird marriage. Like it had a lot of rumors. So
Sure.
he eventually moved to I'm going to keep saying Balinvaden, but if I'm wrong, people, I'm sorry. So he eventually moves back to live with her. They don't have any children, which then gets people all aflutter because then they start thinking about, are they having affairs? I mean, you're talking about Catholic Ireland.
Right.
Babies are popping out everywhere.
Yeah.
Neither one of them are having babies.
Right.
She's finding... They're actually kind of like a 21st century couple.
Yeah, I love them.
Whatever. Well, don't love them for too long.
Oh, okay.
You can love Bridget.
Okay.
You can love Bridget.
I love
okay.
Bridget.
So, they're living their best lives, doing their thing.
Yeah.
March 4th, 1895. Dun, dun, dun.
March 4th.
Bridget.
The Ides of March?
That's the 15th.
Oh, shit. Sorry.
Which, hold on to that. Remember that date. You got so many, like, things you're, like, thinking about it. Okay. March 4th, 1895.
Mm-hmm.
Bridget gets called to the house of a man named Jack Dunn. Remember this name. She traveled to buy eggs from him or something like that. Something to do with eggs. I kind of was zoning out.
Sure.
But something with eggs.
Okay.
So, and it was cold. It was raining.
Yeah.
So, which led to her getting bronchitis.
Oh, no.
I know, poor Bridgie. So she's sick at home for a few weeks.
Yeah.
Okay. Like a normal person,
yeah.
you know, she's a little sick, feeling whatever.
Right.
Great.
Watching Maury.
Probably watching more, or whatever the rural Irish 1895 version of Maury was.
You stole my cow. Anyhow. So she's sick at home for a few weeks.
She's sick at home, and who shows up but guess who? Jack Dunn.
The guy she bought the eggs
The guy
from.
she came to buy the eggs
Yeah.
from. Remember,
Okay.
this is a small community, so he's coming in to pay a visit for whatever he's paying a visit for. He looks at her and says, "That's not Bridgie Boland." Boland is her maiden name.
Right.
Okay. That's not Bridgie Boland.
Mm-hmm.
So he was basically saying she was a changeling
Yeah.
and was sick because she was taken by the fairies.
Ah.
Okay, so it's not really Bridget anymore, it's a changeling.
Yeah.
So in a lot of changelings, as I was talking about earlier, is younger children.
Right, like toddlers and babies and stuff.
Yes. So this is interesting that it's 1895, those superstitions are kind of falling away, and that it's an adult.
Right.
Like she's an adult, successful woman, whatever.
Yes.
So she didn't get better.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's bronchitis. Those things take like fucking weeks. I mean, I had the flu twice in a month, so what are you going to do? So her husband at first was like, we're going to call a doctor.
Yeah.
Okay. So
isn't it Michael Cleary?
Michael Cleary calls a doctor.
First, he's being rational.
Yes. He's like, you know what? We're going to call a medical doctor. They call for a doctor, which I'm assuming, I guess, is a little bit away. The doctor never shows. Okay, so her husband goes back to the doctor. Or calls for the doctor again. He's like, look, my wife's not getting better. Yo. I'm sure he didn't say yo, but he, in his Irish brogue, said, come see my wife, Bridget. She's not the same. No doctor.
They still didn't come?
Still didn't come. So then the husband, Michael
Cleary,
sends for a doctor and a priest. He's like, you know what, we're just getting both. Let's just wrap it up, get them both in here. So the doctor came and said, she has mild bronchitis. Don't worry about it. She's fine.
MBD.
But you don't fucking love of a doctor and an Irish. Like, MBD.
Whatever.
MBD. Whatever. She's fine. The priest, though, also agreed with the doctor. Was like, she's fine.
Yeah.
But he decided, you know what? Just as a precautionary measure, let's go ahead and give her last rites. So for those of you that are not Catholic or do not know Catholicism, the last rites is what the priest gives you before you die so you can make it into heaven. Right? You went to Catholic school longer than I did.
So it's like it's a sacrament. There's 7 sacraments.
Right.
And they call it like anointing of the sick or last rites. So
yes.
It's, very much a Catholic thing. And they think, I'm a little rusty on my catechism, but I think that, yes, you want to have last rites so that you can get into heaven.
I mean, I think even though I know I'm not like a practicing Catholic, I feel like if I were on my deathbed, I would want my last rites.
Just in case.
Just in case. That's what the doctor's like. You know what? Just in case.
Get me a rabbi. Get me everybody.
Get me everything. Get me a fairy doctor. I don't give a shit. Get everything in there. Okay. So this is what the doctor says, right?
Yeah.
But I just want to be clear, she is not dying.
Yeah.
She has mild bronchitis.
Like, Catholics are very much play it safe. Like, you know.
True.
Like, do go ahead and say 27 Hail Marys just to be sure.
Yes. To be sure. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. Sometimes when I'm in a car and it's a rainy day, I'll do a little.
Yeah. I bless myself when a ambulance goes by.
I should do that too. Look, I should do that.
God damn it.
So many things. God damn it. Okay, anyway. So, meanwhile, all this is happening. The husband apparently is showing signs of being volatile. Like, just angry, anger outbursts. And he didn't really seem to have much faith in the doctor or the priest. I guess they, didn't give him the answer that he wanted.
Yeah, right. He wanted somebody to be like, hey, here's what's wrong with her, give her this.
And she's better, I guess.
Yeah.
So then he goes and he finds a fairy doctor, the husband.
Yeah.
So he goes to the fairy doctor, who is basically like a healer. Mm-hmm. They call a fairy doctor. To give him herbs for Bridget.
Yeah.
Herbs for Bridget.
That'd be a good band name.
Herbs for Bridget. Yeah, Bridget Boland. Bridget Boland's fan club. That should be a band name.
That would be a great band.
New band name, calling it. Okay, anyway. So he gives him herbs for Bridget. So in the podcast, the guy was saying that articles that he's read and stuff said that the priest, the husband is clearly a little off.
Yeah.
Right. So it could be that the priest giving the last rites could have reinforced to the husband that he's like, you know what? Bridget's a changeling. Bridget's not a human. Bridget's not getting better. Something like that. Right?
Yeah.
So in his mind, he's like, well, fuck.
Yeah.
So he goes to get a fairy doctor. Because you know who pressured him to see that fairy doctor?
Jack Dunn?
Jack Dunn. Jack Dunn. So they go. So the doctor's name is Dennis Gainey. Or Dennis Gainey. No, that's not even how he said it in that thing. Okay. So Cleary had to put herbs to boil in milk.
Ew.
And give it to Bridget.
That's
I know, I had to
disgusting.
double check that. So he gave herbs to boil in milk and give it to Bridget.
My lactose intolerant ass would be shitting that
Oh
changeling
my
out
God, you
immediately.
Yes. Be like, there it is, I found him. He sent the toilet. Oh my God.
Oh my God, is this before Louis Pasteur came along and showed us how to pasteurize milk? Because that really could have been a bad situation.
Probably. When was milk pasteurized? You know what I'm learning from us doing this podcast
We don't
is
know
I don't know
anything.
shit.
Anyhow, this is a total.
Okay, well, you Google that.
Okay.
So, Cleary, at this point, the husband, Michael Cleary, was convinced she was a changeling, right?
Yes.
At the same time of this happening, his dad died. So, that's just kind of the turmoil he's got. His dad just died. He thinks his wife's a changeling.
Yeah. He's going through some grief.
He's got some shit going on, right? Mm-hmm. So Bridget is now at home with mild bronchitis with this husband who's kind of losing his shit.
Right.
Okay. And then there's multiple accounts of him being volatile. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know what the volatile was.
Yeah.
Because that's just all that the guy said was volatile. So I'm guessing angry, yelling, kind of.
Fix my wife.
Yeah. Yeah. So, all right. This is where it gets. Okay. It's already a little weird with the boiled herbs.
So the pasteurization was 1864.
Okay.
So the milk was probably pasteurized.
Maybe.
Great.
Who knows? Great.
Love it. Wonderful.
Love it. I love that if I'm going to have an herb potion, it has to have pasteurized milk.
Yes. Oh, totally.
I mean, you can't have it without it.
Yeah.
So, obviously.
Great. Love it.
Obviously. All right. March 14th. Bridget's aunt, I don't know how the right way to say it is. Aunt. How do you say it?
I say aunt.
I say aunt too. Okay. Bridget's aunt, 2 cousins, dad, husband, some local men were all in their house.
Damn.
I know. It was like a little party.
Yeah.
So Michael gave Bridget the potion with the herbs, right? And she's like, no. Mm-hmm. She resisted it.
Yeah, good for her.
Let's look at this woman. She's young.
Yes.
She's a dressmaker. She's financially independent.
Yes.
She made a slight mistake in marrying this crazy dude, but like she seems to have it together.
Right. We've all been there.
Right. She's like, no.
Yes, I'm not drinking this.
I'm not doing
weird
that.
ass potion.
So he forced her violently.
Ah!
Okay. So he got a hot poker from a fire to threaten her.
Ah!
And he didn't put the fire on her.
Okay, good.
Okay.
But still, dick move.
Dick move. Puts like the hot poker, like threatening her and using violent language. So I'm sure it's like, you're gonna drink that fucking potion, Bridget, or like, I don't know what she's saying. Think of something very violent.
I said really mean things.
Yeah, probably. With a hot poker.
Yeah.
Could you even imagine?
No.
Okay. So then, poor Bridget. I'm laughing because this makes me feel so awful. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
I know exactly.
You know what I'm talking about? Like, okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Bridget was then pinned to the bed by two men, one of them being her cousin. One of them held her arms, and the other one held her ears while she was forced to drink
Oh my gosh, that's
this
terrible.
potion. And I will tell you guys, I'm getting, all of this is from that Irish History podcast. And a lot of it's how he said it, because I don't know any other way to say some of this.
For
But,
sure.
okay,
Yeah.
I just want that as a disclaimer.
Yeah.
So then, this is the part that's really disgusting.
Okay.
Because he didn't think it was disgusting enough.
Right.
Every 10 minutes, a mixture of urine, water, and excrement, I'm thinking that's a polite way to say poo,
Yeah, it's definitely poop.
was thrown over her to drive the changeling out.
What?
Yes. Every
Who's
10
peeing poop?
minutes. I don't know. I don't think I want to know.
Okay, that's a lot of urine and poop for every 10 minutes.
Well, there's fucking like 20 people in the house.
I guess I just take
There's her aunt, two cousins, a dad, a husband,
And
the
two
local
random
men,
guys from
and
the
you
village.
know Jack Dunn was probably there
Oh,
because
yeah.
he's all up in this
Jack
shit.
Dunn probably
Jack Dunn
keeps his poop in bags
Yes.
under the bed or something.
Oh my god, Jesus poo under the. He probably comes prepared. Do you
Here
need some
you
poo? Do you need excrement? Do you need a whole mixture? I got it for you.
Oh
Let
my
me
gosh.
whip it out.
That's a lot of pee and poop. I'm
Okay.
just saying.
Oh no, I didn't even think about
Is
that.
it like in a container? They just sloshing it over her.
Emily, I think you can imagine it however you want. Maybe a little mason jar. They get a little poke some holes and sprinkle it.
Oh my god.
I don't know.
Okay.
So then, while that's happening, Cleary, the dad,
Yeah.
not the dad, the husband, would walk around with the sign of the cross, making the sign of the cross, like you do with their ambulance.
Yes.
And also pagan charms. So he's like,
Oh.
I just picture him at like a craft table making pagan charms
Covering all-
while all of these family members are shitting and peeing and throwing it on Bridget. And she's a normal, sane person who's sick with bronchitis and is like so over all of these people.
Yeah.
She's probably like, this is 1895.
Yeah.
People, get it
What are we
together.
doing
What are we
here?
doing?
That's crazy.
So then they would go around that, and then they would keep asking her, are you the daughter of Pat Boland, who is her
Dad.
father?
Yeah.
And then she would say, yeah, that's me. Hi, Bridget, I'm here.
Right.
Like, she would just keep answering it, telling them what they wanted to hear.
Yeah.
So then Clary's like shaking her, and he's like, away with you, whatever.
Sure.
So then, guess who comes into the picture?
Jack Dunn.
Jack fucking Dunn.
Oh no, what does he want now?
All right. So Jack Dunn says, make a good fire and we will get an answer.
Oh no. Oh no. I don't like where this is going.
Like, why is Jack Dunn even a part of this?
Yeah, he's just
like, I get the cousins.
Yeah.
I don't get why the local men are there.
Well, I guess he was the last one to see her before she got sick, so in their weird backwoods
way,
They
and
just-
she's feeling, and he's like super
And he's-
superstitious.
Yeah.
This Jack Dunn guy
Okay.
is. Like, very, very
and he's like
superstitious.
a man, and everybody's suspicious of her.
Right, because she's this independent woman. Yeah. Okay. So then she was not burned.
Okay, good.
Okay, yet. So Bridget her toes were held to the fire, asking questions. Are you the daughter of Pat Boland? Are you the wife of Michael Cleary? And she was like, yeah, am. I don't know. Like,
Right.
she's probably like, what other way do you want me to say it?
Yeah.
Spanish? See? Like, what? What? So, she's like, I don't know what to make of this. The podcast says she was deeply distressed and her eyes rolled to her head. And
Me
most people
every
thought
day.
the change of husband. Yeah. Literally, I'm just imagining her just like going like rolling her eyes, like, are you
fucking
joking?
idiots?
She's probably like, okay, I guess I'll like act like I'm possessed now and be like, oh, whatever.
Well, it reminds me of like when you see like I watch a lot of true crime documentaries of like false confessions.
Yes.
Like eventually, like I think of my boy Stephen Avery.
Oh yeah, from Making a Murder,
and Brendan Dassey, his nephew. You know, this child, right? They've decided that he's going to be their guy, and so you ask people questions, and eventually they break, right? Because there's a lot of interesting psychology behind like interrogations and like
and if you keep somebody long enough without the proper like food and water, or in like these torturous situations, they're going to confess. But
she doesn't confess.
But she's answering the questions honestly.
Correctly,
yeah, so it's not even like a confession. I guess if you count her rolled eyes. So they assumed when she rolls her eyes, the changeling is banished.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
Good
great.
news.
Okay. The changeling is banished, right? It's gone.
Yeah.
Well, that's not what Michael Cleary seems to be thinking.
What makes Michael Cleary the expert on changelings?
I don't know, Emily. That's a great question. Because he's losing his shit.
Yeah.
He's the
changeling.
He is the changeling. I didn't even think about that. He is the changeling. He is Kanye losing it at this point. So he's like, we're going to go get local priests to say a mass to get rid of the demon. Because there's a demon now.
Yeah.
I'm confused where I guess they're considering a changeling a demon. It's like interchangeable.
For sure. I guess.
That. Okay. So this priest, who is probably so fucking over this Michael Cleary at this point, he's like, I don't know what you want me to do. Yeah. Like, I gave her last rites just in case. She has mild bronchitis. So the priest goes, well, what about the medicines? What did the doctor give you?
Yeah.
Like, the doctor, what medicines did he give you? Michael says, I don't have faith in such medicines.
Oh, Jesus Christ. He's an anti-vaxxer.
So Bridget, I love the podcast guy was like, Bridget was nervous that morning. I'm like,
yeah, me too.
I would be too. You literally don't know what you're going into right now at this point. So, he started forcing, Michael.
Yeah.
Started forcing Bridget to drink holy water.
Ew.
I know. Can you?
Does it taste different? Don't they put oil in it?
I'm gonna say it's gotta taste different.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure it's not a refreshing
I
glass
don't
of
know
ice
if
water.
it's like regular water or if they just like say a prayer over it or if...
Shit, I lost my place. Okay. So, Friday, March 15th, also known as
the Ides of March.
There you go. Bridget was ready to go. She was dressed. She comes downstairs. I'm just adding a little bit to this. I don't know. But I'm imagining she walks into the room and there's neighbors in the house. Why are there just neighbors in her house? I don't know. And they're all talking about superstition and fairies and changelings. And they're all just like gossiping and shit. She's like, I'm over this. No, we're not doing it.
Right.
And I don't know what was said. But the podcast guy said she rebuked Michael Cleary.
She probably said, fuck you.
Probably. I'm imagining they're all talking about it.
Yeah.
And she's like, did you guys not just witness my massive eye roll? Probably the largest eye roll in history. Where the changeling is now out of my system. Like, it's out. So I'm fine. And she's like, done. So he got pissed.
Yeah.
That mad and violent were the terms I think that they used.
Toxic masculinity was coming out.
Yeah. Which you would think, which I'm just very intrigued because like you marry an independent woman, like you kind of know what you're going to get. So he then decides that she needs to do her part in a ritual. Okay? This ritual, she eats 3 pieces of bread.
Okay.
And then answers questions about...
Sorry.
No, when they said that, I was like, when he was saying that in the podcast, he's like, in a ritual. I'm like, oh my God, what is this ritual going to be?
You get
to
have
eat 3 pieces of bread. I'm like, that's what I do everywhere.
Just
anywhere. I literally went to Panera the other day with some teachers for a break, and I had my baguette and half of Alyssa's baguette and answering questions. So anyway, I'm like, okay. So the questions, it would be like, you eat a piece of bread.
Yeah.
And it'd be like, are you Bridget Boland? And she's probably like, yes, I am. Like, I'm Bridget Boland. And then she eats another piece of bread. He forces her bread. And he's like, are you the wife of Michael Cleary? She's probably like, well, I don't know anymore. Like, I don't know if I want to. But she's like, yeah. So then it comes time for the third piece of bread. And Bridget's like, no, I'm done. She refused it.
Good for her.
She's like, no, I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous. So, Michael Cleary, obviously, who's lost it. He's lost it. Pins her to the floor, knee to her chest, forcing the food down her throat. Mm-hmm. Then he rips off her clothes, takes a piece of wood that was hot from a fire, and puts it on her body.
Oh no.
Okay. So she was weak. I mean, she had bronchitis. She'd just been tortured through whatever, and she's weakened, and she's like, okay, just give me one more chance. Give me one more chance. Mm-hmm. The wood he was using caught her, how do you, chemise? Chemise.
I have no idea.
Like a shirt, basically a shirt on fire.
Okay.
But then, so at first, and mind you, there are still neighbors in this house. Mm-hmm. Like, it would literally be like us in your dining room and him like over by the fireplace.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm not sure the exact, but like that's kind of the thing.
Yeah.
So at first, it's like, it seems like it's an accident, you know? Mm-hmm. Although I would argue that putting wood onto somebody's body.
It's definitely not an accident.
Yeah. But then he grabs a lamp and pours oil all over her. And the people stood by and watched. Right?
Nobody tried to help or save her?
Well, so then when they tried to intervene, he said, quote, he was exorcising a demon. Yeah, so her cousin Hannah was there. And he said, hold your tongue, Hannah. It's not Bridget. I am burning. So then Bridget Boland on March 15th, 1895, died in her own kitchen.
From like being burned to death with the oil?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, that's disgusting.
I know. So then Cleary and another man, aka I'm pretty sure it's Jack Dunn, buried her body. No one went to the police because I guess at this time in Ireland there's a huge mistrust of the police. Funny how that things come back.
Yeah.
So then Michael Cleary and, you guessed it,
Jack
Dunn spend the next day. So they bury her body. Then they ride, I guess, on a horse or walk. I don't know. They go to a fairy hill by the fairy doctor and they're just waiting there because he believed the real Bridget would arrive from the hill riding a white horse. Mm-hmm. Like, that's literally, they're like, we're going to go at this hill and wait for Bridget to show.
Yeah.
Okay. But her body is buried somewhere else.
Sure.
So finally, her cousin Hannah goes to the police, but doesn't say anything that happened. She just tells the police that Bridget is missing. She said, Bridget's missing. Okay. So the police were like, that's suspicious. Mm-hmm. Then they find out everything, like all those people that were there, everything that happened, kind of what went down. So they arrested everyone that was there. And I couldn't tell if it was just there the day of the murder or there also, because I think they heard about the torture.
Yeah. Because
her dad was arrested too. So they arrested everyone, including the fairy doctor.
Good.
But anyway, so a week after she died, they found her remains and people were charged. But some people were let go because they realized that they didn't have anything to do. So the fairy doctor wasn't even there when they did any of it. He just gave the herbs.
Yeah. He's just
so they didn't charge him.
Yeah.
Cleary was arrested with manslaughter and received 20 years hard labor. Jack Dunn received 3 years. And then her father and some locals and the relatives were in jail awaiting trial. Mm-hmm. I don't know how much they got. I didn't really look. But this is the saddest part. I was almost in tears listening to this. So all of that's happening, right? They're all arrested. They find her body. They give her a funeral, right? But the whole town boycotts her funeral.
What?
And the local clergy didn't participate in her funeral.
So who did it?
I'm sure they got, the police, I think the police buried her or did something.
Gosh, that's so sad.
So, the town did it, and, this poor girl is a victim. Victim in every single sense of the word. And because of such superstition, either, like the podcast was saying, they're like, maybe because of who she was as an independent woman and their weird relationship, people didn't know what to think, or whatever it was, they boycotted her funeral.
That's terrible.
Is that not so sad?
Yeah. I mean, it's like, it's really reminiscent, I think, of other, like, you know, you hear about, women being diagnosed with hysteria.
Yes.
Which means, like, a wandering uterus. Like, women throughout all of history have been, like, gaslit about their health and, like, medical stuff.
Which is crazy to me because this one, it's like, I mean, she was an independent woman, but it's not like she was doing things like brewing concoctions or anything. She literally got mild bronchitis. Yeah. The doctor told them she had bronchitis. The priest even was like, yeah, I agree with the doctor.
Yeah.
And this still happened. So that's sadly the story of Bridget Boland.
That's very sad.
Bridget Boland Cleary, but I refuse to say Clear. Like Bridget Boland.
Yes.
And how she died. Because, so the podcast was really interesting. It started with how the news hit America. Like in the paper, and nobody believed it at first. They're like, no, because it said last woman burned alive in Ireland or something like that. And people were like, no way, no way. And then they started to get more research and found this whole story. And like,
it seemed pretty like random. Like,
that was
unexpected.
So random. And then like the people that you could at least be like, okay, Dad, look, this is not me. It is Bridget. Yeah. Whatever. Come on. But no, her family was involved in it too.
That's so sad.
So yeah. So that's Changelings. So what are your thoughts on Changelings?
So very interesting.
Yeah, right?
I really legit, like, I purposefully didn't look them up or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting. Not the Angelina Jolie movie at all.
Definitely not Angelina Jolie. And there's not a ton, like, there's research on them, and you can, if you go on to the Wikipedia site, it breaks it down a lot more than what I did, and it breaks it down by all these different, like, countries and regions and things like that. Yeah. So, because they're all different. But I think that this is the pretty, like, generic version of what a changeling is.
Cool.
And
isn't
really
it kind of interesting? Like, you know, and you know, now we can explain these kinds of things, and then, you know, I think people always just want an explanation, and if you don't have, like, they didn't have science, so they just, you know, that makes sense. Well,
and this started me thinking, so obviously you know, but for those that are listening that don't know, my Uncle Jason is intellectually disabled. I don't remember. I'm horrible with, like, the PC terms of what it is. Yeah. Because when he was diagnosed in the 70s, it was mentally handicapped with autistic, or mentally challenged with autistic, like, tendencies. Yeah. But I remember Grandma and Grandpa telling me a story, and he's still alive, everyone. He lives with my grandparents. He lives his very best life, playing computer games all day. But I remember Grandma and Grandpa telling me at one point that one of the schools said maybe you should institutionalize him because he had, like, anger outbursts and things and whatever, and he flapped and he did all that stuff. And Grandma and Grandpa were like, yeah, no, we're not doing that. But how many people that happened to, and that, like, just that's how it was then. Like, you blamed it on a changeling. Right. And thankfully, some of those people took care of their babies. Right. But I think a lot of them didn't. And I think some of it was easier because if your baby died at a hill, I think it's almost like you feel better leaving it at a hill to die, blaming it on a fairy, then I can't feed this child. I can't take care of this child. I don't know what this child, you know.
It's really, like, a complex way to, like, externalize blame.
Yeah. It was.
You know, it's just, like, you know, we can look at it now with, like, all the information we have and think, like, wow, that's super fucked up. And, like, at the time, it wasn't, right? That was just how they did things.
So, because I studied history in school, and I try to think about this a lot, and I was thinking about it as I was listening, like, and it's so hard to think about it from this time, but sometimes I try to put myself back in those shoes, and I'm like, would I believe that? Yeah. And I'm like, Kasie, you believe fucking everything. Of course you would believe that. Do you think you would believe it?
If that was, like, the common lore.
In 1895, it wasn't that common anymore, though.
Yeah, so I would say,
it wasn't.
Like, I do see a lot of parallels between, like, anti-vaxxers and this story. Like, a doctor gives you sound medical advice, but you, for whatever reason, think they're wrong, and you do your own thing, and you
That's that's a really good point.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is like more extreme because there's a lot of like abuse and violence involved.
Right.
But like, yeah, like parents who are like, oh, well, or people, right? Who are like, no, I don't need vaccines and I'm just going to use essential oils or
do this,
brew this herb. Like, no, like that's not how that works.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. I didn't even think about that when I was researching it.
I just have like a weird fascination with anti-vaxxers, so.
Is that thanks for listening, guys. If you did listen, well, we have to post it first for you to listen to it. Hopefully you enjoyed our story of the changelings and Bridget Boland.
R.I.P. Bridgie.
R.I.P. Bridgie. That really makes me sad,
yeah,
though.
It's very
freaking
sad.
Like, I don't know what's worse. No, obviously I know what's worse. I don't know
being
what's
burned
worse.
alive is
But
pretty
being
bad.
burned alive is pretty bad. No, I'm talking like as far as torture wise, like having urine things thrown on you, or being forced to drink herbed milk.
Yeah, it's all disgusting.
I don't know. I think it's all disgusting. Yeah, you're right. It's all gross.
Yeah.
But hopefully we'll have these posted soon. And if you have any topics for us or questions for us, you can email us at thedarkfilespodcast@gmail.com.
You can find us on Instagram at darkfilespodcast or on Twitter at darkfilespod.
And we promise we'll post things
soon.
We're just waiting on that to happen. Okay, so I guess in the case of the changelings, Emily, what do we say?
We say, case
closed.